Elite independent consulting contains a hidden mathematical trap. No matter how high the daily rate, individual expertise scales linearly. The consultant is constantly trading hours for dollars, placing a hard, physical ceiling on their growth. There are only so many billable hours in a year. Once that threshold is reached, the practice hits an unbreakable revenue plateau. Operating constantly against this capacity wall forces a brutal choice: decline new business or accept it and accelerate towards severe burnout. Either way, delivery quality inevitably suffers. The standard industry reflex is to hire junior staff to absorb the excess work. But in high-end strategy and advisory, clients are paying specifically for senior judgment, not junior execution. Delegating complex decisions to less experienced staff immediately dilutes the founder's initial trust factor. The practice slides from a premium advisory into a commoditized body shop. Escaping this utilization trap requires engineering a completely different business model, rather than simply working harder or hiring faster. A premium CXO advisory must be designed from its inception to move from a practice heavily reliant on the founder to a scalable, network-enabled boutique. This map illustrates the exact architectural blueprint required to execute that transition systematically. We begin at the top, on the entry and trust line. Before any premium engagement is signed, trust is earned by demonstrating clear, visible judgment and problem-solving capability in a low-risk environment. Once demand outpaces the founder's time, the operating model shifts. The solo structure expands into a curated network of deeply vetted specialists, protecting the founder's bandwidth while maintaining delivery standards. The final destination relies on platforms and data. By codifying repeatable frameworks and tools, the firm divorces its revenue stream from the raw hours worked by any individual. Building authority and scaling operations in this space is an enterprise architecture challenge, not a sequence of freelance engagements. Moving to a boutique model requires a total shift in output. The firm must stop selling bespoke blocks of time and start selling strictly defined, modular outcomes. This detailed framework exposes the inherent vulnerabilities of remaining solo. A one-person practice faces severe time constraints and a hard revenue plateau. More critically, it creates a single point of failure. Modern enterprise clients have highly complex, multidisciplinary problems that are nearly impossible for one isolated expert to solve. However, expanding too early is dangerous. A practice must hit strict internal conditions before it is permitted to scale into a boutique. Specifically, the firm needs fully documented intellectual property, repeatable methodologies, and highly predictable economics before introducing external specialists to the client relationship. The decision guide outlines the exact triggers. You move to a boutique model only when demand consistently exceeds capacity, and when the scope of work requires multi-skill pods to execute safely. Scaling headcount before your methodologies are documented and pressure-tested simply scales chaos. It destroys the brand you spent years building. To protect both the client and the advisory, the firm needs strict boundaries. Without a defined commercial architecture, engagements inevitably succumb to endless scope creep. This schematic details the modular offer ladder. Client commitment and financial exposure scale progressively, starting small and proving value at every step. The entry point is the fixed-fee diagnostic. It acts as a low-risk wedge, a short, focused assessment that delivers a clear, actionable output. By starting here, the client gains objective strategic clarity without being locked into a massive, multi-year implementation contract. Total transparency regarding scope, timeline, and fees at this initial stage is precisely what establishes executive trust. The firm earns the right to pitch high-value, recurring fractional retainers only after successfully delivering these early, modular sprints. Modularizing the service stack allows the advisor to dictate the pacing and spend. It protects margin and preserves mental capacity for deep strategic work. Commanding top-tier pricing requires demonstrating institutional-grade risk control. High fees are justified by flawless execution governance. This lifecycle framework illustrates the required discipline. Before any work begins, the firm executes strict conflict of interest and independence reviews. Moving into Phase 6, the team establishes baseline metrics and defines exact success criteria. You cannot prove impact later if you do not measure the starting line today. Once the baseline is set and the contract signed, the engagement transitions from initial planning into active, highly structured delivery oversight. This operating model enforces a strict cadence. Weekly working sessions clear immediate blockers, feeding into structured monthly steering committees that force executive alignment and rapid decision-making. Equally important is knowing what to refuse. The firm explicitly declines work involving misaligned strategy, unclear objectives, or unrealistic scope. The willingness to walk away from ungoverned, risky client work separates an elite advisory firm from a desperate freelancer. In the professional services space, there is a persistent myth that a competitive advantage is built through social media thought leadership or sheer personal charisma. This roadmap shows the actual structure of an enterprise advisory moat, a 10-level compounding staircase built entirely on hardened artifacts and proprietary data. At the base, the founder's initial credibility must rapidly translate into documented, repeatable frameworks that guide diagnosis and solution design. Moving up the stairs, internal playbooks ensure consistency, while external benchmark libraries provide the firm with unmatched speed and industry context. By gathering structured data across dozens of specialized engagements, the firm constructs a proprietary context graph. This is an asset competitors simply cannot buy. At level 8, this aggregated data evolves into decision intelligence. The firm uses its structural insights to directly improve how the client organization makes daily operational choices. In contrast, moats built on generic advice, dense slide decks, or pure talent arbitrage will shatter under the weight of true enterprise scrutiny. A sustainable competitive advantage is never claimed in marketing copy. It is codified into artifacts and compounded over years of rigorous delivery. The true endpoint of a high-end advisory model goes beyond selling retained services. The goal is to evolve into productized embedded intelligence. This vision roadmap illustrates the current state inside most enterprises. Highly fragmented data across contracts, code repositories, and ERP systems creates severe bottlenecks for executive decision-making. A mature advisory firm connects these isolated silos. They ingest and normalize the data, building a unified enterprise intelligence layer. This unified layer generates highly specific domains of insight. It continuously monitors vendor performance, tracks transformation milestones, and ensures rigid policy compliance. The ultimate aspirational state is an enterprise digital twin. It creates a predictive model of operations, permanently embedding the advisor's logic into the client's infrastructure. Transforming from a manual service provider into an automated intelligence platform is the final maneuver. It completely detaches revenue generation from the limits of the founder's time. The entire capability arc follows 4 distinct steps. The advisor enters a chaotic ecosystem to provide clarity, to enforce focus, to drive execution, and leave behind intelligence. The advisory practice itself is essentially a delivery mechanism. It acts as a vehicle for transferring rigid, structural discipline into fast-moving, growth-stage companies. This imported discipline allows those organizations to scale their operations safely and confidently. If you systematically document your methods and build a compounding data moat, unparalleled market authority will inevitably follow.